Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our BIM 360 Build Cost Management Service. We're going to be going over what the service is and how it works. But we're going to give everybody just a couple of more minutes to log in, and then we'll get rolling. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll get rolling in just a couple of minutes. All right, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. We're going to be going over BIM 360. Definitely appreciate your time, so let's get rolling. So little introductory things first. About Microdesk, if you're not familiar with us. We are an AECO industry consulting firm. We've been in business since 1994. We actually have 12 locations across the US and one in the UK now. And our technical team, just the tech staff, we're around 190 people. And those people actually come from the industry. I worked in architecture for about 10 years before moving into consulting. We have specialists that come from construction, from the management, the actual work, engineering, industrial, a little bit of everything. So we actually have experience doing the work, not just knowing the technology. Some of the things that we actually can do for our clients, we do building information modeling, meaning we can actually create the content. We can build the models for our clients. We work with them on projects alongside them. We can help support problems and fix issues. We can work more high level doing strategy and workflow assessments. We can do technology management. And we also have our own internal development team on staff. And when we need to write our own code or customize existing code, we can work with them to actually make sure that integrations that need to be created can be done, or customizations can be created. Now, today's presentation is going to be delivered by myself. My name is Peter Marchese. I'm the Senior Technology Evangelist over at Microdesk. My background is in architecture. My focus these days is more on the emerging technologies, augmented virtual reality, UAVs, a lot of cloud services like BIM 360. And I focus on managing our own networks here, as well as working with our clients for them. Now, today's agenda, we're going to talk about BIM 360 cost management, cover some of the different features and workflows that are available, a little bit about how you can customize it and even integrate it to other services, and how you can actually get access to it, and Q&A. Now, if anybody does have any questions throughout the different things we're talking about, please feel free to drop those into the questions and answer window for GoToWebinar. I'll be keeping an eye on that and answering things as much as I can as we go through the process. If there's something that doesn't fit in right where I am, I'll make sure I cover that at the end. Now, before we get rolling, I'd just like to ask everybody who's watching just a couple of quick questions. So first one's just looking, what is your role? So are you a designer, an engineer, do you more CAD manager or principal level? Do you ever use BIM 360 services, whether now or in the past, or just no? All right, good mix. So if you have used it in the past, a lot has changed. They've been consistently doing updates almost weekly on the different services. And the last one here is, are you currently using different cloud or mobile tools? So not just BIM 360, but if you're using other things, Procore, Office 365, things like that. All righty, on to the main show. Thank you very much for the information, guys. We definitely appreciate it. All righty, so BIM 360 build, cost management tips and tricks. Now, just a little general overview here. So Autodesk's BIM 360 service. This is one of their cloud technology packages. It's essentially a suite of different components and tools that are meant to connect all the Autodesk tools with third-party applications from design all the way over into operations. And a lot of these are focused on specific aspects. So you might have heard of BIM 360 Docs or the document management service, the cloud collaboration for Revit, or design collaboration. Each of these different aspects for our projects, whether it's from working on the design and coordination to managing the safety of the personnel in the field, there's a component of BIM 360 that focuses on that. Now, these components kind of get broken down into sort of a classic and current in terms of an overview of what the tools are. Now, the one that we're going to be focusing on today is BIM 360 cost management. So that specific tool or that specific service is a part of the BIM 360 build package. Typically, when you're looking at getting BIM 360, it comes in several different flavors depending on what aspects or tools you need. So Docs is just the baseline document management service. If you're doing cloud collaboration using Revit, that's going to be design. If you're looking to do model coordination, sort of similar to what you would do at Navisworks in a way, that would be BIM 360 Coordinate. And Build is more focused on the actual project management and setup. So you're going to have the BIM 360 field management, project management, and in this case, what we're talking about is cost management. Now, BIM 360 cost is a couple of different things. It's, number one, designed to be flexible, so you can modify it within the confines of the service to do what you need. but you're really focused on visualizing your risk from a cost standpoint. You're going to be going through things like your change order management. You're going to be looking at the potential change orders and seeing how those can actually impact the overall project budget. So the goal here at the moment is to focus on the change management aspect of our projects. So when we end up looking at this, we're going to have all the different budget items, the things that are coming from our estimate in the very beginning of the project. How much do we actually have to spend on that actual project? From there, we'll start going through the different typical negotiations. How much does this person need? How much is that contract? And then within, you start going through the actual documentation within the system. You'll actually go out and get all those things taken care of. Now, that's always really nice, but the reality of any project is that you're going to have things that change it, whether it's RFIs that tend to maybe slow some things down, or if you have different change orders or different directives, that's going to start to modify the actual process. And again, now you need a way to track these things and see how they're really going to impact the overall process. So when I say phase one here, what I'm referring to is how Autodesk is approaching the BIM 360 cost release. Now, we're looking at the phase one release of BIM 360. Don't take that to mean that it's in beta, because it's really not. It's actually very well laid out, and it does exactly what it needs to do at the moment. The reason why they're saying it's phased is that they're saying, okay, the first version through this that we actually release is focused on this aspect of our cost management. They're going to have another release that's going to be more focused on another aspect, but they wanted to make sure that people realized this isn't the end-all, be-all of where things are, and we are going to continue to develop it and add different aspects. But the first one here is focused mostly on our budget structures, the ability to create and manage our contracts, and have very detailed workflows for change orders and PCOs, different cost markups, and the actual templates that we can use for the documentation. Now, the overall workflow that Autodesk is setting up for this is going to be having, like anything else, a little bit of a cyclical nature. Work doesn't happen in a straight line. There's always changes and things that we have to account for and manage. So as we create that initial budget, we'll go through and set up the contracts. We start looking at our change orders. We get the requests for the quotation. And as they go through, now they're looking for approval processes. And some of these will actually get sent back to the beginning. Some of these will just be rotated through and then pushed forward to the end. But this workflow is actually pretty nice. It allows you to track how things are changing through the project. It allows you to lock the budget when needed, or to actually track how that budget is progressing and being modified throughout the life cycle of your project. So when I say flexible budget structures, what I'm meaning is that we can actually structure the budget to match, hopefully, how you already are setting it up. You can create the codes or descriptions that you typically would have. You can actually have the numbering that you normally would work for in your offices today. So if you currently use Excel and you're concatenating different fields, I need to have the name here, I need to have this number there, I need to do this there. It's likely that you'll be able to set that up perfectly here. And the great thing is, if you have something that's very intricate or you have templates set up, you actually can import a list of content, so that way you already have your standards. So while certain things in here are going to be done manually, other things can easily be done in Excel and then uploaded in, so that way it's a much smoother process and workflow. Now from there, one of the really big features here is the contract generator. What this allows us to do is essentially create, edit, and then view the different contracts that we can set up. And this allows us to compile all the information or documentation from different locations into that package. So I can very easily say, okay, I need this drawing, I need this PDF, I need that model, I want to put this into this package, I want to have this user that's in the project, and tie it together. Okay. When we talk about BIM 360, it's not any one thing for everybody. It's always going to be a handful of different things, because different people on projects have different requirements or different needs. The designer couldn't care less about this probably. They're going to be creating the documentation that gets used for it, but they wouldn't use it. But the construction manager, the contractors, the people who are actually watching the numbers, they're really going to be able to take advantage of this because it ties into everything else. So even though not everybody's going to use all aspects, all of the content and data that's in BIM 360 can be leveraged and utilized together. Now from there, we have our potential change orders and different cost items. So we can actually view all of the different things that are inside of our project. We can create groups of things and link the cost items together. So this actually allows us to add all these different pieces, create the actual relationships, assign things to specific budgets, and keep moving forward. And as things changed, we can actually manage the process for our change orders. We can log all of the actual content. We can see how changing one thing in one location, whether it's a request for a change order or a potential change order, we can see how that modifies and affects things down the run. And as we work through this, we can say, well, this is how much it costs us to make this. But I need to actually put in a markup so that way, our company can make a profit and stay in business. You have the ability to create different configurations based on the kind of work and also based on how you normally organize your fee structure. This allows you to very easily move things around, drag and drop, and put in how you want to modify the amounts. Do you want to do this as an iterative amount? Do you want this to be a flat fee that's added? You can actually create all these different formulas and then apply them as needed to the different line items. And one of the great things about this is that you have specific document templates. Now, one of the complaints that people might have had about aspects of BIM 360 is that the reports at the moment might be somewhat basic. You're getting a lot of great data, but you can't modify it. The reports here, the request for change orders, the contracts, all of these are actually coming from a Word template. So the properties that you are choosing to put in there are actually having an open tag inside of Word that they can actually apply the information into. And I'll show how that actually works in just a minute. But you can create and manage your own templates and utilize them based on the correct project. So if you're working with one client, you might have to have one template. Another client might need to have another one with a different header or footer or logos. So you can set all that up and make sure that they're looking and organized the correct way for your current project. Okay. So what I'm actually going to do is hop into BIM 360 Cost right now and go through some of the different aspects. And again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop those into the questions bar. I'm keeping an eye on that. There we go. So when you're in your project admin, just like any other service, you're now going to actually see your cost management here. So I can have full control over who has access to the service at all. So if somebody I don't want someone to access it, I can either add it or remove it right from here, just like any other project. And when I jump into cost management, I'll be able to see all the actual information. I can sort and organize by different things. So right now I'm looking at my budget code. If I want to organize by the original budget, I can sort by that. And I can actually get this set up so I can actually see how things are trending. Are we staying online? How are my forecasts? Did we make changes to this that went up or down? So I can actually keep an eye on things and get a good visualization of where we are. And as I hover over this, it'll actually give me a little bit of a pop-up there for how that actually changed. If I hovered over one that changed anyway. So this gives me a good readout of where my budget is. I can always come through here and filter so I can only focus on the specific aspects that I might be concerned about or interested in at that moment in time. I can also group things by specific components. So if I only want to see things together as by the cost type, I can do that. Now it organizes it, and it lets me know that I'm viewing it with a filter engaged. So if I'm trying to figure out why things might look a certain way, I can tweak that. And it gives me a nice organization and header of how all these things are assigned based on that group. And if I want to save this as a certain preset, maybe I've made a bunch of filters and organization, I can just save that right there. Now, what I'm looking at right now is my budget. And like anything else, I can always export this out. But I can also jump into my contract. And I can actually see what contracts I might have organized, how this is set up there. See which suppliers might have been chosen for certain aspects. I can look at my different cost items, all the elements that are actually a part of that project that I'm actually going to be assigning costs and budgets to. I can look at their different statuses. And then from there, I can essentially step through the process. So my potential change orders. I can dial into those and see what the actual change order is. I can start looking at all the information on top of this. So are there markups? How are those markups generated or assigned? What's the contract? Is there a description in there? Who created it? And if anybody changed it, who did that as well? So I'm able to track all these different components throughout the entire process. So my potential change orders, my RFQs, and I can see all the related change orders to this. And if you've ever used RFIs or issues inside of BIM 360, you notice that the color up here changes. So this is giving me an idea of what's happening from a status standpoint. So I can work through the process. I can see all the different components, the different aspects of this, and everything that's actually impacting my budget and how it's going to impact it. So it allows me to have a very easy level of insight into my project. Now, the actual use of this is actually quite easy. Most of that is because of the setup that you do beforehand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the actual user side of cost management where I can actually track and manage my budget and see things like my variances. And I'm going to hop into the administrator side. This is essentially where I organize it. This is how I can manage which companies are a part of it, who the contacts are going to be, how I want things like rounding to be managed, and if I want to use custom tab names. So maybe you don't like OCO, you use a different terminology inside of your office. You don't like RFQ, you want to have just Q instead. This is where I can actually start to customize things, again, to meet the needs of my office. What kind of contracts do I want to work with? What kind of cost item types do I have? So there's a large amount of customization that is available to you to make sure that this is meeting your needs. When I start looking at the different module settings, then I can modify how I want things to look. Do the codes for those components have a specific prefix or suffix? How many digits are they? What number do they start with? For those budget codes I mentioned before, this is where I can actually import content. So if I'm using something like CSI numbering for different aspects of this, all I need to do is import this. Last thing I want to do is sit here for 3 or 4 days entering all of this data line by line. Download the template. That allows me to actually edit that or use that for stock, import that in, and everything works the way that I want with the right code, the right number of digits, and the right delineation. So now my budget code would look like this. You've got your project code, subjob, CSI, the different sequences that I might want, and the different cost types. And all this can be personalized to the way that your company has things organized. And if there's specific attributes that you want to have on things, so if you want to have specific contract attributes, should it be a drop-down? Should it be specific text? All of that could be added in. Now, I mentioned document templates before. When you are creating these potential change orders or RCOs or even contracts, all of these are actually being generated from the BIM 360 cost service. At the moment, all of these are being done based off of documents that I actually have in BIM 360 in my document management. So I just have a handful of Word files that are under my cost templates folder in project documents. When I click on this, this is actually going to open up the Word file. And if you haven't used BIM 360 in a while, BIM 360 Document Management has the ability to view Office files. They added that in about a month ago. And the great thing is, if you as a user has, is connected to Office 365, I could edit that inside the browser once GoToMeeting isn't chewing up all the bandwidth anyway. And it gives me basically the full Word online features. And all of these aspects, contractor name, contractor address line, all of those are essentially property values. So this is creating my template that I want to actually use, and all the things inside of these little tilde symbols are pulling that data from BIM 360. So I'm just making the template and putting in, I need this data to show up here. And it's going to grab that data from the actual service. So once I actually have my templates laid in, and you actually get a good handful of these templates as a starter if you don't want to actually customize anything. But I create these, I manage these, and I can drag and drop them or select them from document management. And to give you a sample to start with. So this gives me a great way where I can actually make sure that everything meets the look and feel of my company. I can streamline my workflows without having to completely refresh or change the way that things look. Now, one of the other things that we mentioned was that markup formula. So in this case, this project only has one formula so far, but it really is as simple as me dragging and dropping these elements. And as I move things around, I can actually see how it might change or affect the overall price. So just as easy, all I'd have to do is drag another markup out, grab another subtotal out, and then enter in the data on how I want that to work. Is it a percentage? Is it a flat fee? What's the cost basis? I can calculate it on specific lines. So it gives me a lot of flexibility. Again, I could have multiple versions of this based on the different kind of work that is happening on a project or the different kind of invoices that I'll be using on that project. And like any other aspect of BIM 360, I have control over my permissions. I have full control over who has access to cost as the administrator. I can also say if this person is coming in here, can they just look at things? And are they able to look at which? So maybe I want them to have access to budgets but not cost items, so I can manage those kind of things. And because everybody who logs into BIM 360 does so with a specific username, I can track activity. I can actually see who logged in, who changed what, and when that actually occurred. So there's accountability. If somebody makes a change to something, I actually know who did that and when it was done. Now, one of the great things about BIM 360, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, is that it's not just how it is. Meaning that when I'm looking at all my tools here, I'm looking at my project insight and getting my heads up on how things are happening. It's not that I can take BIM 360 at face value. What I can actually do is modify my workflows with additional tools that can integrate to BIM 360 and take it farther or connect the data from other services into BIM 360 and or vice versa. At the moment, there's a handful of tools that are either developed or in development for just cost management. But that's only that one aspect of it. When you start looking at all of them, there's a real lot of these, and there's more constantly being created. So at the moment, Autodesk is showing 84. We actually are developing specific things for certain clients, and I know other companies are actually doing the same thing. So over time, there's going to be more and more things that you can do with BIM 360 just outside of BIM 360 based on the Forge API. Cool. I'm going to hop back into the PowerPoint for a second now. Now, everything that we've looked at so far was focused more on the phase one. That's what the service can actually do right now. That's what it was focused on. But again, I mentioned Autodesk has a lot of plans for what they want to do with BIM 360 cost. And one of the focuses for the phase two is going to be pay applications. So the ability to manage the incoming payment applications from our suppliers, connecting outgoing applications, as well as doing expenses and invoices. So you get more of a full-on view of everything that's happening. Same thing for forecasting. We're going to be getting a lot more aspects for reporting and analytics. And again, more integrations. And one of the nice integrations is going to be tying the RFI and issues component of BIM 360 document management into the potential change order side of things. So you'll have that in addition to more third party. Now, I mentioned before that BIM 360 cost is a part of the build package. Now, what I didn't mention is how you actually get access to this. If you already own build, cost does not currently come with it. Cost is actually an add-on subscription. If you have 25 seats of build, that doesn't mean that you have to buy 25 seats of cost. You can't get more seats of cost than you have of build, but you can get as many as you want underneath the number of build. But it is currently an add-on sub to the actual build service. Now, I mentioned before that there's add-ons. Roombix is one of the first ones to come out. This allows you to have more tools for reporting and viewing of details, things like hours or equipment costs and expenditures, and tying that into BIM 360 cost. So if companies out there are already using Roombix, you can already tie this in. Now, with that said, again, all the different BIM 360 platforms, the different tools and services and workflows, all of those sit on top of Forge. So that allows us to have more tools for integration, more things that we can actually do and tie into. And that kind of connection allows access to a lot of different things. So if we're focused on bid management, we have things like Assemble or SmartBid that we're going to be connecting to. For cost management, I just mentioned Roombix. CMIC is one of the ones that's coming. For design checking, we have a handful. Scheduling, estimating, more layout tools. So the amount of tools that we can work with and come into is just continually growing and expanding. So what Autodesk is not trying to do is make a walled garden or a siloed approach. They're trying to make sure that the data that you use can be used how you want it. Perfect. So any questions, anything I didn't touch on that you're curious about? One question regarding when will Phase 2 be coming out. Unfortunately, there's not a timeline or time frame on that just yet. I'm hopeful that it's going to be this year, but I don't know for sure. I do know that they tend to put out updates pretty rapidly or pretty frequently, I mean, for BIM 360. If you have ever looked at the Autodesk release notes page, it's a great site to go to. It's a blog, and whenever there's an update to BIM 360, they post about it there. So you'll usually get an update a month from things like the document management. I wouldn't be surprised if we started getting more updates to cost in the next few weeks to a few months. Any other questions? All right, well, I'd wait for any more questions. I'm just going to hop through this. Oh, yeah. Can you buy cost without getting billed? Unfortunately, no. You do need to own a seat, at least one seat of build to get cost. And another question here. Is there a trial of this? Yes, you can actually get a trial of BIM 360 cost if you want to give it a test drive and see if it works for you. And if you already have a BIM 360 hub and you'd like to add the trial to that hub so you don't have to manage two different ones, we would be happy to help out with that. This webinar was focused on BIM 360 cost. We have a couple of other webinars that are upcoming. We have one on July 23rd that's going to be focusing on using Bluebeam Review for your teams, different things that you can organize and go through. Another one is going to be the full-on What's New in Revit 2020. I know last month we did a What's New in 2020 that kind of covered the whole gamut of the AEC collection. So this one's going to focus just on Revit, as there were a lot of different updates inside of Revit, depending on if you're architect or structural or MEP. So that one's going to be going just through that. Another question, can we modify blueprints and save them as modified within the app? So when we say modified, so I'm actually going to hop into BIM 360 for a second. So if I go into my document management service here, so I can look at my PDF, my CAD, or my Revit. What I can do from a modification, essentially, is do markups. I can put in issues. So if I look at my architecture file, actually, you're saying blueprints. So let me hop onto a PDF, actually. And there we go. That one has both. So this sheet of my project has a couple of things, one of which is a markup. So I can see that that was done with version 3. And that markup is pretty basic. It's just me coming in here and drawing a little bit and highlighting it. Now, I can download this PDF with my markups included. What I can't do in the browser is start changing line work or editing that. So there is a tool called AutoCAD Web or AutoCAD Mobile that does allow you to work on AutoCAD files in the browser. That's not tied into BIM 360 document management yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, in the nearer future. For things like if I'm looking at a Revit file and not a PDF, I can edit that in Revit and then publish it to the cloud. But again, I'm not doing that kind of document editing in the browser. I can do that with Word, but not with the actual, AutoCAD or Revit just yet. All right. So outside of our upcoming webinars, if there are any other questions, anybody has something that they want to see, there's something specific like you'd like a personal demonstration of the service, or you just want to reach out, please feel free to reach out and contact us. You can use the team at microdesk.com, check out our social media sites. This webinar has been recorded and will be posted to our channel on YouTube shortly. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure, and have a great rest of the day.